Some people in the automotive media world thought that the Audi RS5 wasn't quite sharp enough or didn't have enough personality or whatever compared to some of its competition like the BMW M3 and the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. So for 2024, Audi has introduced this. This is the 2024 Audi RS5 Competition, and it is a package that they have added that actually changes quite a bit about the car and allegedly gives it a little bit more of everything and makes it even more fun to drive. So let's talk about what this all is and get it out on some excellent back roads to see if it actually makes much of a difference. Welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake. Let's dive right in. So first things first, power and torque. Audi did not change the engine on this car to give the competition package more power or more torque. They didn't feel like the car needs it. I don't necessarily think it needs it either. You've got the same 2.9 liter twin turbo V6 under hood that any other RS5 will have, making the same 444 horsepower, 443 pound-feet of torque, and frankly, I think that is just fine. That flows down to the ground through an 8-speed torque converter automatic, again, unchanged from the regular RS5 to Quattro all-wheel drive. Now, Audi did change the limited slip rear differential on the competition package cars. They call it the sport differential. It's an electronically controlled limited slip diff. They changed how it manages the torque vectoring, so how it sends power left to right, and we'll see how that works here on some really good back roads in just a second. The other thing they did is up front with the steering rack, they moved away from a variable ratio rack to a fixed ratio rack. So that, again, allegedly helps with how the steering feel is, how the car wants to turn in. So can't wait to see how that is here as well. And then they messed with the suspension. So you don't have an electronically adjustable suspension on these cars. You've actually got a manually adjustable 3-way coilover setup. So you've got coilovers here that are height adjustable. So the car in its default state sits 0.4 inches, 10 millimeters lower than a regular RS5. You can lower it another 0.4 inches or 10 millimeters more if you want to using regular coilover wrenches. Audi gives you these wrenches in the trunk of the car. It's not something you're going to do every day. It's meant for, setting something up for track use or whatever you want to do. You're going to be taking the wheels off to mess with the suspension on this car. The shocks are also adjustable. Like I said, they're 3-way, so you can adjust for low speed compression, high speed compression, and rebound. So nice that they've got all that. Now, this is an expensive car with manually adjustable suspension, which I feel some kind of way about. I wish it was electronically controlled, but it is at least nice that you've got something different going on here. Now, you'll notice this car looks a little silly on these wheels. This is not the wheel that comes on this car by default. So I know I'm wearing a t-shirt, it's 65 degrees and sunny here, but Audi did not want us potentially having any bad weather, so they leave these cars on winter wheels and winter tires through the end of March into early April, which is when I'm filming this. So this is a regular RS5 wheel on a Pirelli winter tire. So that'll be fun in the mountains, but normally these come on a 21-inch wheel that is unique to the RS5 competition, and you get a Pirelli Corsa tire. That is going to be a summer kind of track-oriented tire. It's obvious why Audi didn't want to have this car out in January and February with those sorts of tires on it, because they are entirely inappropriate. But that is why these look a little silly. The offset's a little weird, but normally it would look a lot better. Now, this car also has standard brakes. They did talk about carbon ceramics on these cars. I don't know if we're getting that here in the US. The build-in price tool and this car all just have regular steel brakes. Now, I am okay with that. I am not a firm believer in the school of carbon ceramics because I think the benefits are only sort of recognized by most people, and steel brakes are far cheaper to buy into and maintain and replace and all that. So I am cool with all of that. Now, those are the mechanical updates to the RS5 competition. Otherwise, you've got plenty of Alcantara inside, plenty of carbon fiber. You've got the kind of black optics-y stuff going on, and you can get this in a couple different paint colors. This is Sebring Black, which looks black, but also in the sun really does pop as a bit of a navy blue purple sort of paint job. And then finally, Audi wanted this car to sound better and have more drama and more flair, and that's something the Germans don't always do very well. So I love that they did it. So the way they did that is they actually took 18 pounds of sound deadening off the firewall of the car. So what that means is not only can bystanders hear the exhaust of this car, which is indeed an active exhaust, all that good stuff, but they took away some of the sound deadening, which means you can hear it in the cabin that much more. So beyond all that, that's all the performance-y bits. And then moving to the interior, they've got plenty of Alcantara everywhere. There's plenty of carbon fiber everywhere. It's going to be an all-black interior with some red accents on the seat belts, on the floor mats, that sort of thing. And otherwise, it's just regular Audi RS5, which is a perfectly pleasant place to be. So that is it for what makes a competition a competition. Now let's hit some back roads. I am here in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. There's some excellent roads. I went to college out here, and I'm actually with my college car club with a bunch of students and alumni, and we're gonna hit the back roads in this with a bunch of other cars behind us and see how it performs and if it's worth that $11,000 price tag. All right, so let's talk about driving the Audi RS5 Competition. So it's raining a little bit right now. I did get some time with it in the complete dry and learned quite a bit about it. Now, the tires, we have to acknowledge, are gonna let this thing down right now because it's just not, it's 71 degrees out, and I don't want winter tires. They don't have enough grip, but plenty to talk about otherwise. So as far as how this thing handles, that's the biggest change that Audi's made with this. So as far as handling is concerned, of course, the tires don't necessarily help, but turn in here is really nice. Tires make some protest, but the car's really predictable. It's easy to make rotate, which I really appreciate, and it's nice. The steering feels really nice. Of course, very linear, good feel. And then what's nice here with these tires is it's made the limits really low. So you can feel it, and as the car wants to step out, you can really control it with the throttle. And the traction control does a nice job too here. But it's just, it's really nice. And the torque vectoring on the rear end, of course, is helping push me around. And can't get over these tires, but it feels really, really good. It's very predictable, which I like, and it doesn't have the typical, you know, front biased all-wheel drive sort of understeery nature that you would expect out of a car with Quattro. That's kind of what you have to think about here with a lot of these front biased cars versus something like BMW's xDrive, which is going to be a rear biased system. Now, the engine and transmission work really, really well together. I've got it in manual mode. If you put it in drive, you've got drive and sport where it'll shift on its own, and sport really changes the character of the car. Even in the city, it's just so much more fun. You get all these kind of, you know, burbles and overrun and all that stuff on downshifts, and it's very aggressive about it, which I just love. Now, suspension-wise, this is handling well. It feels good. Like I said, it's got those three-way shocks. I have not adjusted them because, frankly, I don't know how. It would take some doing to get everything pulled apart, just change them. You've got the dials on the top to mess with for rebound on the front, but the rears are going to be a little more difficult. So suspension feels really good, and definitely not too harsh. It is harsher in the city, but on roads like this that are very good, very nicely paved, it feels really nice. The transitions are easy. It's a nicely set up car. Now, I don't know how they have it set for stiffness and for compression, rebound, all that, but it's so fun. This is absolutely got much more spirit to it than I think the regular RS5 did, and it's simply because of the noise that it makes and the way they've programmed it to be just a little more silly. And, you know, the Germans don't know how to do silly very well. They can do good very well, but silliness, a little different. Now, worth mentioning with the brakes on this just has those regular steel brakes. They are plenty of brake. I was using them pretty aggressively on the drive over the mountain the other way, and they felt fantastic. No fade. We were, you know, being a little careful because of the tires, but either way, brakes felt fantastic. Everything about this car as a driver's car, I think, is really good. It doesn't feel front biased, and it does have that character. It's got a little bit of a playful nature, but as soon as you start pushing it, even when the back wants to come around, even when it gets a little squirrely, it's still got plenty left in it. It's still very put together, and it's a really, really nice package. I've become a fan of this in the you know, couple hundred miles I've driven it. Now, some people are going to complain about the interior and say it looks old and whatever. I'm okay with it because there's real buttons everywhere. The gauge cluster is fully digital, and they use the cluster nicely. I think they use all the pixels nicely, which is not always something you get with an electronic cluster. The one thing I don't love is with these seats. So the seats themselves are comfortable. They hold me in place. They've got thigh extensions. They've got massagers. There's a lot to like about the seats, but they've got this little plasticky trim here on the sides. And this sounds silly, but if the passenger seat is adjusted in just the wrong spot, the buckle will clank on the plastic as you drive. And you can just move the seat to adjust it, but I was going nuts for a day until I figured out that that's what the issue was. So just an interesting little tidbit. Otherwise, the dash is nice and low. I think the visibility is pretty good in here. The Sportback body style does not work for me as a tall person. The roof is really low, and I'm sitting kind of behind the B-pillar, which I don't like too much. If you get the RS5 Coupe, you can also get the competition package on that, and it will be probably a better fit for tall people. You know, I always appreciate when you get in a car and you can just kind of quickly hop in, and it feels so natural to drive it hard. That is not always the case. A lot of times you have to learn what the car wants to do, figure it out, figure out how to work together as a pair, and in this case, I just kind of hopped in, and the car is so predictable, it's so easy. It rotates with the throttle, you know, you can make it move a little bit with the brake, and it's just, it's a really good package. Obviously, these tires keep those limits much lower, so, you know, that rotation is probably not going to happen on the Corsa tires that this normally comes with, but, well, rather it would, but the limits would be far, far higher. So, I love the fact that you can just hop in and go. I think that says something about how the chassis is tuned, how the dynamics of everything are set up, and it's a pleasant car to get in and try to drive a little hard. The one thing that I will say with the suspension, I know it's nice to have the three-way adjustable. I know they're positioning it as a little bit more of a track use sort of thing where you would actually fiddle with it, but I do have a little bit of a problem in that this is a $95,000 car, and you're telling me that I have to jack the car up to change the suspension settings. That to me, I know, you know, that it is what it is, but for the sake of what this car costs, I do think it would be nice to have something that was electronically adjustable, but Audi's positioning this as the one that is, you know, track friendly, track prepped, whatever. And in that case, then, okay, great, this is the one, and track cars don't have in-car adjustable suspension. They, you know, generally have something that you adjust on your own. And we've got a passing zone. Yeah, mama. This thing flies. It is a fast car. It does not need to be any faster than it is. 444 horsepower is plenty, and it is moving right along. So I'm really happy with this car. I think Audi has done a very nice job. I think whatever complaints people might have had about this having not a ton of personality or not being very playful or whatever, I think with this package, with all the extra little flair and drama and bits and bobs, it does feel a little bit more of that. It's not going to be as playful as something that is smaller and lighter. That's the only caveat that you have there, but in general, it is a nice package. So with all that will be the review of this Audi RS5 Competition. Thank you so much for coming along, as always, on this little journey with me. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe here on YouTube, follow us on social media elsewhere, and head over to outmotorsports.com. We've got a whole community of LGBT car enthusiasts, motorsports competitors. We would love to have you join us if you are a part of that little world. We're hosting events in person on the racetrack and on the street, and would love to have more friends come along. So thank you as always. Please stay safe, be well. See you for the next one.